Solar Warlock movement in PvP. Let's learn how to master it. But before we do, let me emphasize something real quick. I am on mouse and keyboard, so some of these techniques won't work on controller, but I'll be sure to let you know when that is. Now in this video, I'm going to be explaining a few different things, so you can use the timestamp shown on screen or just built into the video to skip to what you want to see. Starting with the subclass, we have Solar Warlock. This is where the majority of our movement will come together. Starting with the jump option, there are only really two options that I would even consider, and the burst glide is the one you're going to be using 99.9% of the time. The only other option that I would consider in certain cases is the balanced glide. Now the only time you would use this is if you were in Dawnblade. Burst glide was nerfed on Dawnblade quite a while back, so it doesn't give you as much momentum. But balanced glide hasn't been changed since, so if you want to go for complete speed in your Dawnblade, you're going to want to use balanced glide. But for literally any other activity in any other case, you're going to be using burst glide if you're going after the speed. Now the melee is actually important here for a pretty niche set of people. I'll get into that a bit later on in the video, and the rift itself isn't too important. You may want to use Phoenix dive for maybe stopping yourself from going too far, or if you're just engaging in fights while floating, you can use it to get back in cover. In PvP, its movement implications aren't too important, so you can just use a regular rift and you'll be fine. For the aspects, of course, we're going to be using Icarus dash and heat rises. Icarus dash is super important, but heat rises is somewhat replaceable. Icarus dash is the main movement tool for warlocks, so if they decide to put it on prismatic in the future, I will touch myself. The fragments don't matter at all, so we can actually move on to our first movement tech. But before we do, 95.2% of you guys are not subscribed, so if you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing. Now that's enough scummy begging, let's move on to the staircase skating. This is a really neat movement tech where you can move up an inclined surface, and as you reach the end of this surface, you can spam your jump, and then you'll go flying forward with massive speed. Many people know how to do this already, but if you don't, let me explain. In your keybind section, you're going to have to set your secondary keybind for jump as the scroll wheel. You can do it scroll wheel up or scroll wheel down. For my keybinds, I do scroll wheel going up because I have my scroll wheel going down as Icarus dash. So as I said earlier, you're going to need to find an inclined floor. It can be a smooth surface or a staircase. Go on it and run up, and as you reach the end of this staircase, you scroll your wheel, and then that should spam enough jumps to send you flying forward. Now there is a little bit of finesse required here. You can't just spin the scroll wheel as fast as you can because this will happen, and you can't do it too slow because this will happen. But with enough practice, you can master the timing and the speed that you're going to need, depending on how much of an incline the surface actually is. So that's the staircase method, very useful for getting around on different maps, because a lot of these maps do have these small inclined surfaces. I would definitely get this down and mastered, very useful. Next, we're going to be talking about Icarus dash and how to use it effectively. Now, I'm sure all of you know how Icarus dash works. You need to be airborne, and you need to activate the air dodge, and then you can move directions, go forward, go backwards. So if you just use the Icarus dash by itself, you're not going to go very far or very fast at all. Now this is super basic and very fundamental, so you're going to have to learn this and actually get consistent at it in order to advance to the further techniques that we're going to use. Before you use your Icarus dash, you're going to want to activate your glide. That's because Icarus dash will push you forward at different speeds depending on your momentum that you had before using the air dodge, and the burst glide gives you quite a decent amount of momentum, so that will feed into the Icarus dash and send you forward much faster. But there are ways to get even more momentum simply by jumping, and before you land you can press the glide, and as you land press jump again, and then press glide once more. Then you can press Icarus dash straight after, and you will go big fast. This technique does work on controller too, so that is nice. If you find yourself not timing the jumps right on M and K, you can use the scroll wheel to spam jump inputs, and that will almost guarantee the timing to work out. So there's another use for the scroll wheel jump. That's very nice. There is another way to gain a bit more momentum before an Icarus dash, and that involves an eager edge sword.
Omega, you won't have heavy ammo all the time in a PvP match.
You can still use eager edge with no ammo, believe it or not. You just use it as normal by pulling it out, pause, and by pressing left click, then swap off the weapon, instantly press glide, and then Icarus dash, big speed. This works in every game mode apart from trials and I believe comp. Any game mode where you can't pull out your heavy sword without ammo, very useful, but not something I use too much compared to something else which I will mention a bit further down in the video. A few more neat things with Icarus dash is that you can change direction mid Icarus dash, so you can go around corners, which can be nice in certain situations. Another thing is that if you are going like the speed of sound into a wall, you can use Icarus dash just before you hit the wall to make sure you take 0 damage. The same goes for when you're falling a long distance down, just press Icarus dash and you'll be fine. Now we shall discuss the big float. That's of course heat rises. This will essentially just let you reload, shoot, ADS your weapons while floating, and it will also give you 20 AE at all times, and that's before proccing it, so these are all passive as long as you have it on. When you do proc it, your glide turns into a more controlled and much longer lasting glide. To be honest, it's more of a levitate than it is a glide. It also gives you 2 2 Icarus dashes before kicking the cooldown in, and it turns the plus 20 airborne effectiveness into plus 70. The AE doesn't really help movement at all. I thought it was just worth a mention. I'm not going to be talking about how to duel other guardians with heat rises because that is fairly straightforward. You just float and shoot. It's not much to do with movement at all. So now we can get to the relevant stuff. When you do proc heat rises, like I said before, you get 2 Icarus dashes. That is really nice because you can for sure cover more distance when you do proc it. A neat trick is to proc heat rises before you enter your Dawnblade. This will then reduce the cost of any Icarus dashes you do while you're in the super. You can see in this clip the difference between the energy it takes for each Icarus dash. As I mentioned before, the glide turns into more of a levitate, and this new glide will really kill your momentum like crazy, as long as you're not in a super. So that's not good for moving fast, which is really the end goal of this video. With Eager Edge, Heat Rises is great because you can use Eager Edge momentum to make up for the lost momentum with this new glide, but there is another way to make use of Heat Rises without any Eager Edge ammo and with no super popped, and that involves some special movement tech, snap skating. So that will segue us perfectly into our next section. I'm sure many of you know what a snap skate is, or at least have heard of it. It's something you can do to gain a very good amount of momentum while grounded with no supercharged, with the incinerator snap charged and on a somewhat flat surface. All you gotta do is slide, jump, and press your super button followed with another jump. That will do some weird stuff and then give you a nice big jump in the air. You can combo that with a glide and an Icarus dash straight after to prepare yourself forward very fast. If you have heat rises procs, you can combo this twice in a row and not really feel the loss of speed you usually get when you have heat rises, and you don't need an Icarus dash to go a bit faster. Here is a regular skate going in the forward direction compared to a snap skate going in the forward direction. You can see just how much faster you go with snap skating compared to regular Icarus dashing. To get this all down consistently, you will need to slide, and mid-slide you need to press jump and then super almost instantly. Then you press jump again, and very quickly after that you follow up with an Icarus dash. You can try and perfect it, or you can just make a macro. Bungie have stated previously that they won't ban people for creating macros to do with movement stuff, so it should be fine, but do it at your own risk. Snap skating is very useful for closing the gap and just for getting from A to B a lot quicker than anyone else. I'm going to show you some practical examples of me using Snapskate effectively. Firstly, you can see that I get this guy super low from a distance, but he gets in cover just in time before I kill him. So then I push through with a Snapskate and he tries to pop a super to defend himself, but the Snapskate was just too fast, so it let me clean him up before he could even finish his animation. Here's another clip of me using Snapskate aggressively. I kill one guy to proc kill clip, then I push out with Snapskate and notice on my radar that there's some other guy hiding around a corner. He has a shotgun, but my Snapskate pushed me so far out the exit that I wasn't anywhere near shotgun distance from him. That allowed me to obviously miss my shots, as you can see, but I still cleaned him up. Here's an example of me using it defensively. I'm pushing up on a hunter, but before I enter a room I hear his stasis super pop, so then I Snapskate in the opposite direction to dodge it. Very nice. Here's another clip of me dodging another super. I'm in a situation where I'm surrounded by allies, and soon after I hear a Storm's Edge pop.
Enemy has your zone.
So then I look around to see this guy because I know that I'm in a big group. This guy's definitely going to try and get the 3 or 4 piece. So then I Snapskate towards him. So hopefully I should be clear from his super AoE. And then once I did get away, he noticed me dodge first attack. So then he goes back for another one. And I Snapskate once more to dodge yet another hit from the Storm's Edge. Then I clean him up. You can see there are so many use cases for Snapskate. You can use it aggressively, defensively, or just for general fast movement. And a few things to know about Snapskate. You can't do it when you have your super charged because it will just pop your super and then it won't work at all. You also need to have Incinerator Snap or the Stasis Warlock melee equipped and charged, and you need to be on a somewhat flat surface. You can be on a decline surface, but it can't be too steep. It doesn't matter what super you have on as long as you don't have it charged. You can Snapskate on Stasis, Solar, and Prismatic, but of course only Solar will have access to the Icarus dash. Honestly, Snapskating has become such an integral part of my movement that I don't ever not use it as long as I do have Solar Warlock on. I use it more than I do a regular Icarus dash because there isn't really a point using that when you have access to a Snapskate. So I would for sure try and learn this, or at least get a macro set up. You can do this on controller, but it's much harder than doing it on mouse and keyboard as usual, but I will definitely give it a try. Next up is the well skate. I'm not going to go into too much detail because there isn't really much to talk about here, but well skating is very commonly used in speedruns in PvE. It requires you to have your well fully charged and an Eager Edge sword with ammo. That hardly ever happens in PvP these days, and if it does, you are literally throwing by taking a heavy brick just to go big fast. It might not be too bad in 6v6, but in trials and and comp and stuff, this is not worth doing at all. That being said, let's talk about some exotics you can use to benefit your movement. There are two main exotics that benefit from or help to improve your movement. Those two would be transversive steps and rain of fire. Transversive steps are obviously good because it will just let you run faster, slide further, which will then increase your movement speed. They also prevent your crouch walking speed from decreasing below 4 meters per second. That means if you're stuck in a smoke or you're slowed by a dusk field or whatever, you can still crouch walk fairly fast. It also reloads your weapons when you're running for a little bit, but that's not super relevant here. Transversive steps are my top pick for movement, obviously. The next one, rain of fire, is the other main exotic option because it does benefit from Icarus dash. You just reload your weapons. Honestly, it's not really worth using this exotic at all unless you're using Vex Mythoclast. I just thought it was worth a mention. Now there is another exotic which is really niche and not really needed at all. That is Claws of Ahamkara. This exotic will give you an extra melee charge, meaning you can still use one of your melees and snap skate at the same time. Usually you would need to hold onto your melee and never use it in order to snap skate, but if you do see value in the incinerator snap, then you can for sure use Claws of Ahamkara to let you snap skate as well. Plus you will get an orb with every charged melee kill. That's on a 120-second cooldown, but with that you can spec into surges and stuff. With all of that being said, I hardly use any of these other than transversive steps. I use transversive steps quite a lot, but right now I'm currently maining Ophidians, so you for sure feel the difference with transversive steps. You can feel yourself going much faster. Next we're going to talk about weapons which benefit your movement speed. Aside from the obvious eager edge, there are some weapons which complement movement a fair amount. The main weapons being anything with a lightweight frame. As long as you're holding the weapons, they will give you 20 mobility and a 6.25% increase to your sprint speed. That's the same sprint speed bonus as on transversive steps and dune marches and stompies. The mobility will help you strafe faster, jump higher. I think that is a very overlooked aspect of the neutral game. I do go into more detail in my armor breakdown videos, so definitely check that out if you are interested. You more than likely have very good lightweight frames in your vault, so pick whatever you like. Another thing to keep in mind is the Gambit origin trait. This will give you the same 6.25% sprint speed increase after a single kill. It's not the best, but definitely something to note down. And another thing to note, your sprint speed can only be increased by a maximum of 12.5% when you stack things on top of other things, like transversive steps and a lightweight frame. So really, you only need 2 buffs, because each buff only gives you 6.25%. 2 of them will max it out at 12.5%. The last weapon is more of a combo of weapons, and that would be Mida Multi-Tool and the Mida Mini-Tool, or the Callus Mini-Tool, I guess. Mida will give you a 10% sprint speed increase by itself. With the SMG equipped, you get 12.5% increase for both of the weapons. And I believe that Mida is the only thing in the game to give you 10% increase to your sprint speed, so that's definitely worth a mention. And now that we're on the topic of sprint speed, let's talk about maxing it out. There are many different weapons and combinations you can use to max out your sprint speed. The main combinations are shown on the screen right now, and according to Destiny 2 wiki, Mida and transversive steps do not stack, so that is sad. All of these combos are worth looking into, but I don't believe that the Gambit origin trait is the best pick here because it does require a kill. As I said before, you can't go above the 12.5% sprint speed increase, so as long as you have 2 of the sprint speed buffs, you are going as fast as you can. That's obviously not including the amplified buff or the speed boost or whatever the hell. That should just about sum up everything that I use for movement on Solo Warlock in PvP. If there is only one thing that you should take from this video, I would say that it's to master the snapskate and the playstyle it comes with. It is well worth learning and implementing and will bump up your gameplay just that little bit extra. I hope you did learn something from this video. If you did, then please leave a like and subscribe for more PvP content. Let me know down in the comments what you want to see next. A few of you guys have been requesting some tier lists, so I think I'm going to do a tier list next. But anyway, I hope to see you guys soon. I love you for real. Bye now.